Welcome to the Policy Committee meeting. I'll begin by taking the roll. We have Councilman Jefferson.
Good morning, President.
Good morning. I have Councilwoman Gordon. No. Councilwoman Naeem will join us when she can. She's currently in another meeting. And Councilman Walton, we're not sure whether he will join us at the current time since he's changing committees. And then myself. We also have Director Clay. We have Councilman Abercrombie. We have, KD.
That's Christina Diamond.
Christina, thank you. Miss Diamond. And have I left anyone out? Oh, and of course, Attorney Matravy is here and Director Clay. All right, then with that, I will ask for to review the minutes so that we can.
Chairman Shell,
Yes,
Chairman,
sir.
excuse me for jumping in. Since
That's all
the
right.
committee doesn't have a quorum to conduct a meeting, the committee cannot take a
Can't
vote
vote
to
to.
approve anything. So,
So we
uh,
cannot vote to on the passing of the minutes.
Not at this moment. We'll just
not
come
at
back.
this moment. Yeah, we'll bring
All
it
right.
back for another meeting.
Or if we have a quorum by the end of this meeting, we can revisit
We
it.
can go back to, okay,
Yes.
we'll do. All right, so then the item on the agenda is to review the documentation requirements for social equity applicants, the income requirement, and also the residency requirement. So, Director Clay, are we going to be able to take a look at this, at the materials on the screen?
Kamala can take care of those, and Crystal.
Okay.
Yes, Chairman Shirley. Please give me a moment. I will share the screen.
Okay.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so these are the documents that are currently posted on the website, the list of documents required to prove residency and ownership and control, residency and income, sorry. So these documents, the committee will basically go over it and compare that, discuss which one is relevant and which one is no longer relevant since we've gone through the review for almost a year now. And to do that, Kun Resnick has prepared a memo basically showing the document that were useful to them and the document that were really not useful to them. This will also guide the members of the committee in maybe making a decision later on as to what to recommend to the council in the future about amending the document required. So the document have been emailed to the members early this morning.
Right. And so, my first question, Attorney Matravy, is what is our timeline for the recommendation to the full council?
Through you, Chairman Shirley. So right now, we just the committee needs to just do this before the Department of Consumer Protection launches another round of lottery applications. So it's not a pressing matter today to be able to do it, but it's just something on the to-do list of the committee to be able to revise the list of requirements so that the public is informed on time before the next round of lottery kicks in or is announced.
Okay, so I guess we need to organize around how how we're going to proceed in terms of making these coming to some consensus within ourselves, within the committee, in terms of what's useful, what should be required and what not, and then making that recommendation to the full council. I know at the last council meeting, Attorney Blake suggested that, for example, the Social Security card would or should be removed from as a requirement, so that the Social Security number is enough.
Yeah. May I to you, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Yeah, so my sense of this is just with a quick review of the documents provided. I'm thinking that we're basically trying, and based on your comments regarding the Social Security card matter, that we're looking to streamline this process somewhat. I think what would be helpful, and I think CohnReznick has laid out why the rationale why some of this should be removed from consideration. And I think council members should have that opportunity to talk to CohnReznick if they have any questions concerning their recommendations. I always defer to the experts on these matters. They are the ones actually doing the vetting. And maybe Attorney Matrivi can speak for them in their absence. But if the council members are receiving this document as we are, the policy committee members, I think all questions should go through either the executive director or Attorney Matrivi and to CohnReznick if they can't answer. But the recommendations are clear to me and the rationale is clear to me. I don't think we should waste too much time going back and forth debating with the experts. They're doing the vetting. So they're telling us why this doesn't should not be taken into consideration or why it's not sufficient, or relevant even. That's that's my take on it. And maybe I'm wrong. Am I missing something?
No, I agree with you that we should certainly consult with them and find out what they found useful in the past. One of the things that I thought was a bit ambiguous, and this is not a reference to any one particular requirement. It's something about the directions. The directions said, in some cases, it says submit one or more of the following documents for verification. And I was wondering that, if someone were to submit one that actually did not verify, then could they argue that, well, I did what the document said I should do, and so why are you penalizing me for following the directions? So I think maybe there might be some review of what the directions are as well, not just the documentation, but what do the directions tell the applicants to do, and is that clear, or should that be also reviewed and tightened up so that it's unambiguous in every aspect?
I agree. And let me just add to those comments through you, Mr. Chair. The other concern that I think the full council should consider yeah, those instances in which a document is missing, is that enough to invalidate the application? And maybe and this is something for policy to consider, Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
that we recommend to the full council that, and I think Attorney Blake had mentioned this on the other day, that we consider giving individuals that opportunity, if they're missing a document, to present the document in question, so that they're not penalized for not having that document. I mean, because sometimes they just might not upload a document.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. Now, if the application is denied, once the applicant has provided all the necessary documents, then that's a whole different issue. But I think we have to be careful when we're vetting these applications and denying folks simply because all the documents are not available. And maybe we should put a timeline on that as to when, if they're missing a document, how soon they should be able to produce that document.
Right. And I agree. And we'd like to hear what Attorney Matravy would say about this, and Director Clay, but also how often can they give them maybe one opportunity, and instead of several opportunities, to come back and complete the documentation?
No, that makes a lot of sense, Mr. Chair. I think all we have to do is, once the application is submitted and the review process or vetting process begins, if they're provided a list of, you're missing this document, and this document, and you give them that opportunity to present the document, that's when you have to have a time frame in which those documents have to be produced, and they have to meet that. If not, we would have to consider the application as is, and that's it. You understand? Right. So I don't think folks should be zonked up front simply because they're missing, one or two documents.
Thank you, Councilman Jefferson. So now, Director, how would you like us to proceed at this point? To review the Cohn-Resnick recommendations?
Yeah, so one of the things I just wanted to add is maybe what we could do for the applications is have them sign, so maybe have a checklist of all of the documents. And then have the applicant sign that they are submitting their application, understanding that they have either left out or they have provided or it's not applicable. My concern is that when the application is submitted to the DCP, who then verifies all the documents are there? Is it the DCP that verifies the documents are there and the application is complete? Is it Cohn-Resnick or the third-party reviewer that reviews the application and determines that it's complete and ready for review, or not complete or deficient? So I just think having something that says, for us, this document is not applicable, so we intentionally did not submit it. Or we have submitted this document. We've checked this, we've checked this, we've checked that. So now we're telling you that according to your checklist, we know exactly what we're submitting. And this is to us a complete application, because it will take manpower to review each and every one of those applications to make a determination whether they left it out intentionally or if it was not available or whatever the status is. And I'm concerned that that would hold up our process.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, to respond to the executive director concerns, at some point, the documents, the application is going to be questioned. It's just a question of at what point. Even if they question it on the front end, if DCP says this is what's going on, you don't have it. Does that mean when it gets to Cohn-Resnick and they still don't have it, that they get denied, or are we going to give them that opportunity? So we're checking the documents twice, is what I'm saying. So right now, as it appears as though DCP collects it, sends it on to us, and Cohn-Resnick is doing the review. to determine whether all the documentation has been made available, and they're denying them if they're not. So my issue is, because I hear what you're saying, it's just a question of, are we duplicating the process if we do it on the front end and the back end, and what is our pleasure in terms of how we do this?
So I don't want to at all speak for the DCP and recognize that Chairwoman Comer has joined the meeting. And I think I would just like to recommend that we have a conversation, my staff have a conversation with DCP to see what the best recommendation is, and or defer to Chairwoman Comer.
And thank you for that, Director Clay. I appreciate that. I would like to have our drug control director sort of inform, because one of the things I'm not sure of in terms of the process of the application is, can you advance in the application if you haven't uploaded a certain document, right? Or is it everything has to be uploaded based on request in order to complete your application and finalize it? And then once all those documents are in, I know that, especially now after the last hiccup, all documents that are being provided are being uploaded and sent to CohnReznick. So just for the purposes of clarity, I think it would be helpful to have him sort of answer that question as to, can you sort of skip a step, or do you have to provide the documentation as requested for each step in order to complete your application?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, my sense is that at the end of the day, CohnReznick is doing the vetting, and so they're going to review the entire application in any event, right? And so they're going to tell us if a document is missing. That's the fail safe right there. Because they're going to say this document is missing, and I think our responsibility as a council is to say, okay, does that allow for a denial, or do we give that individual the opportunity, or that company, organization, to not resubmit, but to provide the
documentation.
documentation.
I think there's two questions for me. One is exactly that. Do we, and I think Attorney Blake did mention this, do we provide sort of a window for course correction? Or do we need to take a second look? And if this conversation is already was already part before I joined, I apologize. But do we need to take a second look at the documents that we are requiring to really see if they add any value? And I know the Social Security card was one that I had mentioned previously. Like, does that really add value in terms of making a determination?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. We had a brief discussion before you joined us about that, Madam Chair, and I suggested basically that we provide the CohnReznick's recommendations to the full council, so that they have an understanding of what the rationale is on the part of CohnReznick for not reviewing certain items that are presently on the checklist, for not requiring certain items that are not on the checklist. So, that's part one of the conversation, and part two is the submission of documents that have not been provided.
At this point, is there, I should know, I guess, but is there a checklist? I thought I heard Executive Director Clay say there should be a checklist of all documents that are provided by the applicant, and the applicant can actually sign off on their checklist. In other words, if you look at for income, there are several documents that we will accept for that. They can check which ones they're sending, and then same thing with residency. There's many documents that can be reviewed for residency. They can check which have actually literally check a box to say which ones they are submitting, and then sign that to say, this checklist is complete as I see it. And their signature would verify that. I mean, signature would verify that this is what they're submitting. And so, who gets it? And then DCP can have a look at their checklist to say, okay, this is what they're saying they submitted for this particular requirement, and this is what we're going to expect to see, and this is what we're going to use for the qualification.
Right, through you, Mr. Chair. I understand what you're saying. I'm simply saying this: if let's just say all that is done, and it gets to CohnReznick and the signature is on that checklist, does that mean if they're still missing a document by the time CohnReznick vets that application, do we still give them the opportunity after they signed off on that checklist? Do we still give them that opportunity to submit a document that they basically have told us they don't have or they feel is non-applicable? That becomes the issue.
Yeah.
You know, because if we're telling, you know, why, you know, we're giving you the checklist and you're telling us you have it, and you're telling us you're not providing it, or you're telling us in your mind it's not applicable. So what are we supposed to do? We're going to give it back to you, and you're gonna turn around and tell us the same thing. So at some point we have to. I mean, we can't put we shouldn't put our process through that type of vetting, because it's just it's time consuming.
Director Clay?
Yeah.
Thank you
So
for that.
yes. So I'm just thinking of what I remember the process being, and I think we have to put the onus on the applicant. So they have 90 days to complete their application. If we provide them with a checklist, they check off all the documents that they are submitting or what the status is. So they have, if they don't have a document that is ready to be submitted with the application, then they shouldn't submit the application until they have that document. If that document is going to take 6 months, to be produced. So like this, the Social Security card situation. So they provided a letter that said from the Social Security Administration saying, we are going to be sending you your Social Security card, but you don't have it. And so I guess that company was denied because they didn't have the actual Social Security card. A letter could be sufficient where we're not going to accept the Social Security cards, at all. But I think it is incumbent upon us to get the applicant to submit the application that they want us to review. And for us not to double back and say, oh, well, you didn't submit this document. Did you mean to leave it out? Did you want more time to add it? It's a 90-day period. You got 3 months to get it together.
And so you're suggesting, Director Clay, that we not, once they tell us what they have submitted for consideration, we don't necessarily give them an opportunity to say, you didn't send us X, Y, Z, and since they have 90 days to do it.
And I think 90 days is sufficient time when, again, in our first round, we were a little rushed. And so I think people kind of panicked and they wanted to get their applications in fast. And, we're giving the instruction and creating the criteria all at the same time. I think in this next round, I think we will be much better prepared and the public will be more familiar with the process.
Exactly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I still think, and I understand what you're saying, Madam ED, but notwithstanding what you say, I still believe there have to be some flexibility on the back end. At some point, CohnReznick might come to us and say this document has not been submitted, and for whatever reason. But I think we have to decide as a council, what that looks like and whether or not we're willing to give the applicant an opportunity to submit it. Because here's the thing. If we deny the application, it's going to go through the appellate process when it could be avoided. So we have to have some flexibility and I'm not suggesting that if they're missing 3 documents that we give them an opportunity to get us those 3 documents now. But let's take the case of, and maybe we shouldn't use the example of the Social Security card because that's probably going to be on the house. But let's just say, some relevant document that's just not there. We might want to say, okay, under this circumstances, we'll give you 10 days or, to get us that document. We have to have some flexibility on the back end so we don't have a legal logjam, with some of these applicants, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to appeal and it's going to get to the Attorney General and they're going to look back at us and say, well, you should have just given them the opportunity to cure the defect. That's what the administrative judge is telling us to do anyway.
And to add to that, I actually think that where the friction will come in is when an applicant submits, for example, the residency requirement. They submit documentation that in their minds verifies their residency, but in fact, when we through CohnReznick take a look at that, we disagree. We don't agree that the document that they have submitted sufficient documentation to support their residency. And that seems to be an area, at least in my mind, that's the area where there's more room for disagreement.
Right. But if they're, okay, fine. Let's say they're denied based on that. In that situation, CohnReznick will deny them. So the question becomes
Right.
after that is, what do we do about that before they make that appeal? So it comes back to the council saying this was denied based on a residency issue. What was that residency issue? Now the council could decide whether or not we want to give them a second look based on their explanation of the residency issue. So so we're saying 2 different things now. We're saying after denial and prior to denial. Yeah, right. So CohnReznick, if they're missing a document, my initial issue would be, how relevant is that document? How important is that document for that applicant to gain approval? And do we give them that opportunity to submit the document? And how much time do we give them? Now, the second issue is if they submit the documents and residency is at issue and they're denied, what do we do about it? Because the whole idea is to prevent, this triggering an appeal process that could be avoided.
That's what we're trying to do. And
Right.
would it help at this point to take a look at CohnReznick's recommendations? I know they submitted that in the documentation we have.
Can I make a suggestion that we look at the recommendation of the documents that CohnReznick is recommending for inclusion, and that we at some point take a vote or get that to the full council? Because I do think that when you start to, if CohnReznick begins to review an application and then they say, well, this document is missing, and we give them 5 days, 10 days to resubmit, that becomes subjective, I think, when you're starting to review and you're starting to pull out things and you're giving possibly one applicant the opportunity to do something, and then you have to be consistent with that practice throughout the rest of the process, because that could also lead to, says, well, this company is just like mine and they got approved, but I didn't get approved. So now I'm going to file an appeal. I think that the process for reviewing and sending back and or signing the checklist, I think that should be discussed a little bit more, maybe various scenarios between the social equity staff and the DCP staff, kind of running those scenarios and including CohnReznick in that as well.
Before it comes to our committee and from us to council.
Yeah. And then, so the concern that I have right now is how long will it take if CohnReznick is in the middle of reviewing an application, they find something is missing. We reach back out to the applicant. They have 10 days. So now that's 2 weeks that we're still waiting on that application to be reviewed and finalized. If, so the other issue becomes how expensive does the verification become when and or if CohnReznick is now communicating with the applicant, sending letters, waiting for information to come back in, getting all that together.
Mm-hmm. Those time and
Right, through you, Mr. Chair. At the same time, Madam ED, I mean, we're gonna spend time on it one way or the other through an appellate process. We're still gonna spend some time on it. I like to see, here's the ideal situation for me, that we provide a bulletproof um, argument on appeal, that we did everything we had to do, that it was on the applicant did not do what they were supposed to do, either along the lines of residency income, ownership, control, whatever the case might be, but we did our due diligence. And that's why I want to protect us on the front end before it even gets to the appeal. So when it does get to the appeal, the Attorney General is saying, look, we did everything we had to do. We gave you X number of chances. They have safeguards built in this process so that you get it right, and you didn't. So let's build in the safeguards. I don't care if we do it through DCP and it comes to your staff and it goes to
Right.
CohnReznick. Let's do everything we can so we have a bulletproof argument on appeal.
and so,
Right.
Councilman, you're suggesting, I think, that on the front end, if a checklist is submitted from the applicant saying, this is what I'm sending in for proof, and if something is missing, we go to them on the front end to say, you said you submitted this, but we don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
and then
And that
that's
certainly falls within the parameters of the Uniform Administrative Procedures Act, which isn't stated in the bill, but is a remedy.
Right. They give us the remedy based on our status as an agency. Now, and I'm going further, Mr. Chair. I'm saying even after that, and they submit it, CohnReznick starts to review it, and now they have an issue around residency, and give them that opportunity to explain it, and then they have to rise or fall on their explanation. Yes, Madam ED is absolutely correct. It's going to take a little bit more time, but it's going to save us on the back end. So now you're getting a couple of bites at the apple, but if it's denied, we can stand by our denial. Say we stand by our denial. We did this, gave them a checklist, they signed off, we tried to cure it, it wasn't cured. It went on to, or it was cured, it went on to CohnReznick, they vetted it, they found some additional problems with residency and income. We gave them an opportunity to cure it, explain what they're talking about. This is what they brought back, we denied it.
so,
Do what you got to do at that point.
So at that point, it sounds like there's a meeting or at least an exchange, a communication exchange between CohnReznick and the applicant, because they've submitted documents saying, this proves that I am social equity applicant. CohnReznick is saying, no, we don't agree. We don't think that this proves your residency. And so at that point, is there a discussion? You're saying that the applicant can then submit documentation to tell to say why they feel that the documentation they have submitted does in fact prove their residency or income.
That's not you, Mr. Chair. That's exactly the argument they're going to make to the administrative court. They're going to make that same argument. Let them make it to us. So the administrative judge could say, well, they told you what it was, and here was their response, and we're rejecting you based on that. That's we don't agree with you. That's all. We don't agree. You're denied. Now make the appeal. We went on appeal because we gave you every opportunity to do it. And here's the
and so
at this point, let me make it real quick, Chair, because I'll forget. You know, how many applicants are we really going to have to deal with along those lines? It's not going to be many, I don't think. What do you think, Madam ED? It's not going to be that many. It's probably going to be one or two.
I don't know. It depends on what people are looking to do. You know, some people are looking to get their application in, and if they know that they'll have a chance to, to have it reviewed and they can recorrect, or if they want to be ambiguous in submitting the information to get additional information. I would like to take a little time to talk with DCP, to talk with our attorney, and CohnReznick, and kind of
Mhm.
come up with that bulletproof process,
Okay.
and then make that recommendation to the council. I think there's several things that have to be considered here before we should kind of say, let's do it this way.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I think, and as you were talking there, Councilman Jefferson, I'm thinking either way, once they're denied, they're going to go to appeal. I mean, they will, right? So, and what I think what you're saying is they will make the same case. They will have to make the same case in appeal that they made to us prior to appeal.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And let's give them that opportunity, because it protects us as long as we do our due diligence on the front end. So no matter what process you come up with, you always got to think they're going to appeal. And what is your response going to be? So we anticipate the appeal.
And I think our design would be to limit those people who would need to be contacted again to cure. And that's if we get 1 or 2, that's fine. 3 or 4, that's fine. And so just let's make sure that our process is very clear. It is very concise. It is understandable. And when they submit their application, they know exactly what to do. They've submitted everything, and we limit the number of folks that we may need to reach back out to.
Great. But keep in mind, I do want to say this to you, Mr. Chair, that I just a cursory glance at what was submitted by CohnReznick, I support it because they're doing the vetting. They know what's best. And I'm going to defer to CohnReznick in terms of some of the changes we have to make.
Right, and I agree with you, Councilman Jefferson. And the only addition I would say, as I said earlier, I think we need to also, why don't we take this time to review the directions to make what they are told to do? Because and see, in some cases, is there ambiguity? Because I believe there could be, and if so, correct that. So we'll review the directions they're giving at the same time we're reviewing the documentation required.
Absolutely.
All right. So our next steps will be, at this point, Director Clay, you're going to talk to DCP with the recommendations that we have from CohnReznick and come back to a policy committee?
Yes, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. And we'll make sure that all those documents, and we'll check with DCP on them and confirm.
Okay. Madam Chairwoman, is there anything else we need to discuss at this point?
Not on my end. Thank you.
All right. I guess we're at for the good of the order at this point. If not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Well,
Yeah,
we don't have a quorum.
Yeah, we don't really have a quorum.
All right.
Well, I'd like to say to the committee, if I don't speak to you guys before, have a great holiday. Have a safe Thanksgiving. Enjoy with your family.
You too, Madam.
Thank you. You too.
Director.
Madam, are we having that? The governance meeting's been pushed back to December 2nd. Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, everyone.